Aiden X, I'm glad I caught you. We've just received crucial intel on the West End's latest sensation. Our field agents were able to infiltrate the Noël Coward Theatre to capture this vital footage for our team to assess whether Mischief have another smash hit on their hands. Review this footage and report back for debriefing. Hello you lovely lot, and welcome back to a brand new video here on my Stagia YouTube channel. Today I'll be sharing with you guys all of my thoughts and feelings about Mischief Comedy's brand new show, The Comedy About Spies, which is currently at the Noël Coward Theatre. So grab your magnifying glass and put on your best spy disguise, and let's get into this. If you're new here, let me catch you up to speed with just how this is going to work. My name is Flora, and I have lots, and I mean lots, of opinions when it comes to the theatre. These are opinions that many people feel I'm unqualified to have, but has that ever stopped me from sharing them? No. Before I get into my review, I always like to give you guys a little bit of context about the show, such as its synopsis and background, as well as whether I've seen it before I give you my highlights and my lowlights, basically what I liked and what I didn't. Everything shared in this video is nothing but my own opinion, so feel free to disagree with me all you want down in the comments. And before we get too far into this, I wanted to take the time to say a massive thank you to the people over at Mischief who invited me along to check this show out. If you know me, and spoiler for later in the video, but you know that I love anything that Mischief has ever produced, so to be invited by them specifically was super exciting. Right, now that disclaimer is out of the way, let's get on with the show, and first things first, a little bit of background as to The Comedy About Spies. Now, The Comedy About Spies, as I said, is the newest show from Mischief. It's literally brand new. So it comes from the same team behind amazing shows like The Play That Goes Wrong, and it is the second show in the Comedy About series. This specific show was written by Henry Lewis and Henry Shields, and was directed by the incredible Matt DiCarlo, and like I said earlier, it is running at the Noël Coward Theatre in the West End, and will be doing so until the 5th of September. We all got our first look at this brand new Mischief production at the 2024 Royal Variety performance, in which the cast performed the opening scene to the show. And due to the show's initial popularity, I think previews were almost entirely sold out. They did actually make the decision to extend the run, which I think is amazing because it does give more people the chance to see it, even though the run is still technically a limited run. Given how new the show is, there really isn't much more background information I can give you, unlike other shows where I'm telling you about different productions that have happened here, there, and everywhere, because this is the first and only production there has ever been of The Comedy About Spies. So it's a pretty short background, but you're probably wondering, what on earth is The Comedy About Spies about? Great question. Let me give you a quick synopsis. The Comedy About Spies, who'd have guessed it, is about spies. No, really? Yes, it's about spies. It's actually a 1960s inspired spy thriller, bursting with bungled missions, tangled identities, and a lot of miscommunication. It's also probably the most traditional farce Mischief have ever produced. It's full of mix-ups, switcheroos, and classic spy shenanigans, but beneath all of that, there's also a really compelling story. The story begins when a rogue British agent pilfers the plans for a top-secret weapon, aka Project Midnight. CIA and KGB spies converge on London, which is where our show is set, more specifically at the Piccadilly Hotel, all in pursuit of this elusive weapon, trying to beat their opponents to it. Their job is made infinitely harder when you bring into the mix a clueless young couple, a hapless actor who's angling for the role of James Bond, and enough double agents to confuse even the sharpest of operatives. There are endless twists and turns which seamlessly combine the mysteries of a classic spy thriller with the iconic comedy that Mischief is so known and loved for. Not wanting to spoil the top secret details of this show too much for you, I'm gonna leave the synopsis there, which hopefully gives you a little bit of an understanding as to the story you might witness if you go and see it for yourself, without giving away all those twists and turns I mentioned. So now it's come time for me to tell you a little bit more about my personal context with the show. I know I hinted at it earlier, but I feel like if you know me, then you know that I love everything Mischief has ever done. From seeing The Play That Goes Wrong way back when it first opened, and many times since, to watching all of the Goes Wrong show. I've even had the opportunity to see a number of their smaller shows that I feel no one's ever heard of, like Good Luck Studios. So it's safe to say that I love what they do. I really enjoy Mischief Productions. So I felt like that's a very important thing for me to get out of the way, because you know then where I am coming from when I am judging this show. Does that make sense? The only major Mischief production that I haven't seen is the comedy about bank robbery, funnily enough, which isn't bad going, to be fair. And whilst not all of them have been my favorite, I'm looking at you grown-ups, I have yet to watch one that I sat there and was like, I am genuinely not enjoying this. So when I found out we were getting a brand new Mischief production, you guys know I knew I had to be there. But little did I know that this Mischief production would provide me with opportunities that I never thought would have been possible. The most, I think, pinch me moments of them being when I was invited to the open rehearsal to see the scenes in progress, as well as to interview the amazing Mischief cast and learn a little bit more about their characters in the show. Like I said, this was a total pinch me moment because I have been a massive fan of Mischief Productions since forever. And so to get the opportunity to chat to all of the original Mischief lot, as well as to get a sneak peek as to just what to expect when I finally got to the Noël Coward to see the show, was phenomenal. I know I said it at the time, but I feel like I have to say it again. A massive thank you to literally every single one of you that watches my videos, that subscribed. If you aren't subscribed, subscribe now, because without you guys, none of this would be possible. And so I feel like I definitely don't say it enough, but I'm going to say it again, because thank you for making ridiculous opportunities like this even possible for me. But after this experience and getting to see 3 of the scenes that they were working on and chatting with the cast, I think I was more excited than ever to check this show out in its final form. Now, prior to me being invited by Mischief to cover the show for you guys, I did actually see it 2 times whilst it was in previews. So it's safe to say that this is a show that I was so excited for and then immediately fell in love with because I keep going back. So I suppose that just begs the question, what is it about Comedy About Spies that I think is so good? Well, let's kick this debriefing off with the highlights. Kicking off our highlights today is definitely going to be the humour. Now, if you've watched any show by Mischief, then you know that they know how to write a comedy. But given how sore my cheeks were by the end of the show each time I went to see it, it would be foolish of me not to elaborate on why the comedy in the Comedy About Spies is just so good. When the Mischief writers, in this case Henry Lewis and Henry Shields, set out to write a show, they seem to understand just how far they're able to carry a joke before moving on. They know how to let a joke rest and mature over the course of a scene or the whole show, and similarly, they know how to sprinkle the seeds of a joke early on, which leads to big payoff later down the line. And this leads to a big payoff when a punchline is finally reached. A good way to describe it in my mind is that they know when the horse is dead and to stop beating it, which is a skill I feel like a number of comedies lately have really struggled with. Not to name names, but Why Am I So Single comes to mind. I think this understanding of how a joke works is really what makes Mischief so good at what they do and why the comedy in Comedy About Spies works so well. The show doesn't just rely on witty one-liners and cringy humour to make the audience laugh. The jokes are well crafted and often so funny because no matter how absurd the situation is, it feels rooted in reality and therefore believable, which to me makes it even more entertaining. In the case of the Comedy About Spies, there's humour in characters like Mr. Tipton, the eager hotel manager who is always right where his guests need them, perhaps before our characters have even realised they need him. Or the dynamic between Lance Buchanan and his mother Janet, a very grounded mother-son relationship that's been made comedic by the fact that they're spies on a top secret mission together and she's trying to coddle him through it.
Keep your voice down, sweetie, we're undercover.
The show is funny not because the characters themselves are funny people. They aren't trying to make each other laugh. As an audience, we're laughing at the situations these characters find themselves in and how they interact with each other and their surroundings. And whilst it seems like a weird thing to say, it doesn't feel like we're laughing at the characters either. Like, of course we are, but it feels more dignified in a weird way. I don't feel like we're laughing at the expense of the characters, even though we are, of course, laughing at them. I don't quite know how to phrase it in a way that makes sense, but it makes sense in my brain. So if you know what I'm on about, please let me know. It feels like the characters, even though we're laughing at them, still maintain their dignity throughout the show, which I think is a very fine balance to try and strike, and Mischief have done it very well. Similarly, despite the show being full of slapstick and farcical humour, none of it ever felt too silly or cheap. There were no pitiful groans or eye rolling at any point, and none of the jokes, at least to me, fell flat, which I think is an incredibly difficult thing to do, or at least a very difficult thing to do well. And again, Mischief nailed it. So whilst it may seem obvious for a show called The Comedy About Spies to have good comedy in it, it goes without saying that I do still think it is something that Mischief should be praised for here, because they have such a gift when it comes to writing these comedic shows that to let it go unmentioned to me is a crime. And And following on from humor, the next highlight of this show for me was actually the story of the show. For a show like this, it would have been so easy to focus solely on the humor that the story gets left to the wayside a bit, but I didn't feel like this was the case. The story, whilst there is one overarching plot, can be broken down, in my opinion, into 4 smaller plots, I suppose, all of which interact with one another to tell the overarching story. You have Bernard and Rosemary, a young couple whose relationship is kind of at breaking point after 3 years together. There's Sergei and Elena, our Russian spies, one of whom is desperate for a friendship and the other who prefers working alone. Then there's Douglas Woodbead, the actor, not the cricketer, who is there to meet with the producers of a little-known spy film called James Bond. And then you have CIA agent Lance Buchanan, who is there to try and prove he is a good spy by catching the Russians in the act. No, and his mother Janet, who's there to support her little boy. Whilst on the surface, none of these stories feel explicitly linked or in any way tied to a spy thriller, the way all of the characters interact and play off of one another, I think help makes the story a lot more compelling, as spies try not to blow their cover, actors try and land roles in movies, and poor Bernard tries to propose. Now, of course, I don't want to give too much away with regards to detail here, as I don't want to spoil it for anyone, but I think it's fair to say, on top of the comedy and the character development, the story of the show does an excellent job of presenting the audience with a spy thriller. For all the jokes and mishaps that the characters are experiencing, beneath it all is a captivating mystery and a race against time for all of our characters to get their hands on Project Midnight. I really appreciate the fact that a good spy story wasn't sacrificed for the sake of jokes. Now, I will say I do think the pacing of Act 1 was better than the pacing of Act 2, where wrapping up the story I think dominates the show, with there being fewer jokes. But that being said, it's all an excellent story to watch unfold on stage. There was no feeling of, oh, please get on with it already, which I really liked, and I do like that all of the characters are given a satisfying ending. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised that Mischief have managed to create such a fantastic story, given the amazing stories they've been able to tell in the past, but this one to me is top tier, so of course I had to talk about it in highlights. Highlight number 3 is going to be the cast. The cast of Comedy About Spies, of course, features original Mischief members, which if you've ever seen them together on stage, you know is a big deal, so of course they had to be a highlight. While subsequent casts of shows like The Play That Goes Wrong do a brilliant job of bringing the Mischief material to life, I think there is a certain magic about watching the original members on stage together working so well. There is a chemistry between all of them that I think is truly unmatchable and really does need to be seen to be believed. If you didn't know, Mischief was started by Henry Shields, Jonathan Sayer, and Henry Lewis, all of whom met at Lambda, and the team has grown and evolved over time to include other founding members such as Dave Hearn and Greg Tannehill. Whilst there is some debate over who people consider original members of Mischief to be, many fans of the company typically view it as the core members established by the BBC show The Goes Wrong Show, even though there are differences between the original cast members of The Play That Goes Wrong, which predates The Goes Wrong TV show. I think The Goes Wrong TV show just made these Mischief faces a lot more familiar to the average person than the original Play That Goes Wrong cast, if that makes sense. But semantics about who counts as original or not aside, the point I'm trying to make is that this troupe of actors is literally in a league of their own. They have been creating and performing shows together for so long now that the energy they bring to any production is something that needs to be seen to be believed. You can tell that they're just having so much fun up on stage together, and their energy to me on stage was literally infectious. From moments where you can see them creasing and trying to wind one another up on stage, to moments that genuinely did go wrong, even though this isn't part of the Goes Wrong series. Each time I've seen this show, it has been a new experience, and there have been different laughs in different places simply because of what the actors are doing on stage. And I think all of this can be attributed to the fact that the actors all know each other and get along so well. For me, this show wouldn't have worked anywhere near as well as it does if it weren't for the Mischief team, both in the creative room and on stage. Now, I will say, after chatting to Chris and Dave after the show, that the show I saw on the 14th of May was an extra silly one, as it came after the official press night, which they all took a little bit more seriously. This meant that they were all creasing, which I think only made the show feel funnier. I was sat close enough that I could see them giving each other little pleading looks to get them to stop because they're about to burst into laughter and things like that, and watching them fight the giggles I think gave the show this perfect energy, particularly for my third time seeing it. I have also had the privilege of seeing not one but 2 alternates perform, and not only perform but debut their roles. The first was Adam Byron debuting in the role of Douglas Woodbead, the actor, not the cricketer, and Ali Dar as Janet Buchanan. It's always special to see an alternate debut in a role, but I feel like Mischief makes it extra special. I adore the way that Mischief makes a big deal about people debuting in roles and bringing everyone's attention to that fact in the curtain call and really celebrating it. So whilst this has been a little bit of a ramble, I think the point I am trying to get across is that This cast needs to be seen to be believed. They are phenomenal at what they do, and they bring this show to life in a way that I feel like so few others would be able to. So duh, it had to be a highlight. Carrying swiftly on, I really wanted to highlight the choreography in this show. Now, you might be sat there thinking, Flora, this is a play, not a musical, and there wasn't any dancing. So why are we talking about choreography? Believe it or not, my friends, choreography is much more than just dance numbers. And in Mischief's case, we have choreographed chase scenes and fight scenes. Starting with chase scenes, the show has two, and I personally think they were both fantastic. They were timed so wonderfully to the music and do a fantastic job of building tension, as well as bringing the audience up to speed with what's happening in the show in a very show don't tell way, and it also did a great job of establishing the spy thriller feel to it. Chase scene 1 asked the audience to keep track of a stolen briefcase as cast members weaved in and out of one another, chased each other, and hid behind doors before the entire chase scene evolved into a chase scene through the streets of London. The second chase scene again involves a chase through the streets of London, but this time we follow characters that we've come to know and love throughout the course of the show as they all scrabble to get their hands on Project Midnight. Both scenes make great use of the show's travelator, more on that later, and really do work well in giving the show stakes, as well as the feeling of a high-octane chase scene that you might see in something like Mission Impossible or James Bond. The movement choreography I feel is so important to making these chase scenes feel as high-octane but also as smooth as they do, so a big props to the movement team for that. There was, of course, also fight choreography. I mean, it is a spy show after all.
Stop it. Give it. Stop it. Give it. Stop it.
Now, whilst this isn't Mission Impossible caliber fighting, it was just polished enough to sell the idea that these are highly trained spies and that there was this real sense of peril for some of our characters. It all combines really well with the rest of the show to give the audience this much needed spy thriller feel without detracting too much or feeling too serious in contrast to the comedy. I also feel like people all too often think of choreography as literally just dance numbers, so of course I wanted to talk about the fact that there is amazing choreography in shows that have no dancing in them at all, and I think the Comedy About Spies provides an excellent example of how important choreographed movements and fight scenes can be to telling an overall story in the theatre. Saving the best for last, the final highlight for today is going to be the Comedy About Spies amazing set. The brilliant set for this show was designed by the amazing David Farley. Now, this man has some amazing set design credits to his name, but he also worked with Mischief on the set for the Comedy About Bank Robbery, so he definitely knows what he's doing when it comes to designing a set for a Mischief show. Now, the set for Comedy About Spies, when you first rock up to the theatre, looks deceptively simple. You have this Art Deco proscenium archway, and then a backdrop of a stylized London skyline. This is then transformed into an MI6 office, the Piccadilly Hotel lobby, rooms in the Piccadilly Hotel, which is a truly impressive 4-room bit of set that's absolutely massive. We also see locations like the hotel laundry, an elevator shaft, a supply closet, a rooftop bar, London by night, and a spot along the banks of the River Thames. So as you can see, we cover a lot of different locations in the show, and I think David's set brings them all to life wonderfully. Now, a set like this, of course, takes advantage of a bit of creative liberty as well as things like forced perspective. So when you're looking at a big set piece such as the 4 hotel room set piece, things like the beds are actually smaller than a normal bed to make the rooms feel bigger. When this set piece is revealed to me, it is this big wow moment that I feel like people often only really attribute to musicals, so the fact that they've been able to create this sense of wow in a play I think is beautiful. Unlike some shows, I feel like the Comedy About Spies does such a great job of bringing their sets to life, not only capturing this 1960s feel, but also making sure that the audience isn't left having to imagine anything. You don't have to imagine the lobby's check-in desk because it's there. You don't have to imagine the hotel's elevators because they're there. I think this not only allows the audience to focus on the story of a show a lot more, but also means that the story can play with the set in a way that it wouldn't be able to if we were imagining things. By having the set fully realized, it allows certain gags in the show to play off the environment the characters are in, as opposed to just relying on characters interacting with one another, and I think that is so fun and honestly made for some of the best laughs in the show. Now, if you watched the Mischief performance at the Royal Variety Show, then you're probably familiar with the opening scene of the show, and by extension the set they used in that performance. But fun fact, the only part of the set used in the Royal Variety performance that actually made it into the final production was the desk, with the rest of the set getting a complete redesign. Is this strictly relevant to my review of the set? No, but I thought it was a fun fact anyway, so I wanted to share it with you guys. And possibly the biggest asset this set has to its name is the travelator. That's right, this play basically has a giant treadmill right in the middle of the stage. It really gave an interesting sense of movement that you don't see in a lot of other plays, which can often feel very static. From actors being able to walk down hotel hallways while staying center stage, to chase scenes scenes actually being able to happen on stage in front of you as opposed to just having actors run from wing to wing. No, this really gave this sense as though we were following the characters through the chase scene, almost like a camera following a chase scene in a movie as opposed to watching them run past you. It gave the show a really different dynamic, and I think really again helped to solidify the chase scenes as a highlight of the show as well. It was all just really cool to watch and see, and like I said, made the show feel a lot more dynamic than I think a lot of plays are often considered to be. So naturally I knew David Farley had to have a massive highlight to his name here with the set for the Comedy About Spies. Okay, that's highlights over. Let's talk about the lowlights. Okay, our first lowlight is going to be sightlines. I wanted to call this set, but given how much I have just praised the set, I don't feel like set is the right descriptor for it, shall we say. And I think I've decided to change it to sightlines because the one major flaw with this show is not the set, but how the set exists within the Noël Coward Theatre. And this is an issue that is related to how the set functions. Given how far back a lot of the set is that's upstage to you and me, you actually can't see a lot of what's going on depending on where you're sat. I.e. audience sightlines are greatly impacted by the way the set exists on the stage. It's fine if you're in a premium seat, like the middle of the stalls, but if you look at a map of the seats, then you can see that a good number of these seats are marked as restricted view, even if under normal circumstances or with a different show, they maybe wouldn't be considered restricted view in the same way. Now, the set piece this most applies to is definitely the big 4 hotel room set piece. This set piece is massive and does take up the whole of the stage, but due to its height and how far upstage it sits, if you're sat too far forward or too far back in the theatre, you are definitely going to miss things. And I think it's a shame that your ability to understand and follow the story of the show and catch certain jokes is so greatly impacted by your ability to sit in the best seats possible. Now, sightlines are of course an issue in every West End venue, with there being restricted view seats in almost all of them. Hell, in some venues you might even end up sat behind a pillar. So this isn't an issue unique to the show The Comedy About Spies. I just think it's an issue exacerbated by the way the set is incorporated onto the stage. So overall, whilst the set is stunning, I did want to point out and make it a low light that it is a set that is very dependent on where you're sat. And I just wonder whether it would have been better suited perhaps to a different styled venue with less drastic architectural obstructions to an audience being able to see the stage. But that's it. That was my only low light. I literally cannot find another one. So I guess it's time for the conclusion. If you take anything from this video, it's the fact that I think you need to go and see The Comedy About Spies. Am I biased because I love Mischief? Yes, but I also think that makes me one of their harshest critics. I know how amazing the productions they can produce are, so if this had fallen short, I would have been sure to tell you about it. I think it also means I have immaculate taste in plays, and therefore I am an authority on pointing you in the right direction when it comes to going and seeing them. You can trust me to point you in the right direction, if you will. No, but seriously, if you're looking for a funny, beautifully told story that's crammed full of amazing jokes, as well as some high-stakes spy action, and maybe a chase scene or two, then this is a show that needs to be at the top of your list. I do genuinely believe that this show is Mischief at their finest, showing audiences exactly why it is that they are so well rewarded for what they do. They are all just so good at it. Now, if you do want to go and check out The Comedy About Spies for yourself, it is running at the Noël Coward Theatre in London until the 5th of September, so you have plenty of time to go and check it out. And if you've seen The Comedy About Spies and want to check out some other Mischief shows, then of course you have The Play That Goes Wrong, which is at the Duchess Theatre, and we also have The Christmas Carol Goes Wrong coming up. It will begin its UK tour on the 2nd of November, as well as a limited 8-week London run from the 6th of December. But that is all from me today. So if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up. If you have your own thoughts and feelings about The Comedy About Spies, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. But until next time, this is Agent F signing out. Bye!